Hi everyone, my name is Kelleher, and for my topic today, I chose ocean acidification. I chose this topic because it's super important to me growing up around the beach my whole life and being surrounded by the ocean. I just thought it was important to learn more about marine life and the effects it has on not only marine life, but humans too. So ocean acidification, what exactly is it? It's a chemical process that changes the properties of water. How does this process happen? So the carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere, it can't just all stay there. So some of it is released into the ocean. And when the CO2 and the water react with one another, they create a carbonic acid. The picture to the right shows carbon dioxide and H2O, water, combining together to form a carbonic acid. So the carbonic acid lowers the pH levels of the ocean, creating an acidic water, which can be very dangerous to marine life and their habitats. When we have an acidic ocean, marine life can't function the way they normally do, and this creates a harmful environment for them. So currently, the pH level of the ocean is around 8.1, but by 2050, it can go to an 8.0, which although it might not seem like a drastic decrease, it has a huge, huge effect on the ocean. A lot of animals can die and even go extinct. So in this slide, I kind of just broke down the process of ocean acidification. I broke it down to steps, and I'll just go through each of them. So we start at the top where carbon dioxide's in the atmosphere, it can all stay there. So some of it is absorbed into the ocean. When the carbon dioxide and the ocean mix, that's what creates the carbonic acid. It decreases the pH level of the ocean, and when that carbonic acid is created, it releases hydrogen ions. When the hydrogen and carbonate ions meet together, that's what forms a bicarbonate ion. And when there's more bicarbonate ions, there's less amount of carbonate ions. Carbonate ions are really important to marine animals. When there's less carbonate ions, these marine animals with shells, such as mussels, clam, urchin, etc., they struggle to reproduce calcium carbonate, and calcium carbonate is what keeps them strong and healthy. Again, with coral reef, if they're not provided with the calcium they need, they cannot perform like they normally do, which is really important because a lot of these animals use coral reef as their habitat. Okay, so in this video, it kind of just goes into more of an explanation of the importance of calcium carbonate and the effects it has on coral reef.
Some types of coral have a hard outer skeleton made out of a compound called calcium carbonate. This compound is made of calcium ions and carbonate ions. Ocean acidification causes the amount of calcium carbonate in seawater to fall. This is because some of the carbonate ions that normally pair with calcium to form calcium carbonate instead pair with hydrogen to form bicarbonate. With less calcium carbonate around, corals find it more difficult to rebuild and grow their skeletons. This increases the chances of coral death.
So again, that video kind of just goes into depth that calcium carbonate is important and coral reef relies on it, and without it, they wouldn't be able to survive. So now we know what ocean acidification is, the steps of it, but we don't know what causes it or who. So in fact, it is us, the people. The burning of fossil fuels, industrialization, and waste disposal are three huge major impacts on the acidity of the ocean. So when major industries create emissions, they can form acid rain, and when this acid rain is mixed into the ocean, that's what increases the acidity. That's just one example of how industrialization affects the ocean. Once again, the burning of fossil fuels, the more fossil fuels we burn, the more carbon dioxide in the air. So it has to have to go somewhere, and it is unfortunately released into the ocean. Another example of waste disposal is agricultural waste and ocean dumping. Ocean dumping, it's not as popular as it used to be, but many years ago, huge buildings, factories, and companies, they would take boats of all of their waste into the middle of the ocean and dump all of these harmful products with harmful bacteria into the water, which is a huge reason the acidity of the ocean can increase. Agricultural waste. So this is basically when things like fertilizer, animal disposal, etc., they run off into bodies of water, and these bodies of water end up leading into the ocean. Um, the products that are in fertilizer that include pesticides, those are very, very acidic. And when they're let into the ocean, this can cause an increase in the acidity. It's really important that we kind of reduce the amount of agricultural waste or find a way to reuse it in a more environmentally friendly way. Just a fact that the ocean absorbs nearly 30% of CO2 from the atmosphere. So basically, one third of the carbon dioxide that we produce is absorbed into the ocean. Once again, the more carbon dioxide we produce, the more carbon dioxide in the ocean. It's a hand in hand effect. Okay, the effects of ocean acidification. So there's many different effects, but here's just a few. Marine ecosystems, of course, have a direct impact from ocean acidification, decrease in aquatic life, coral reefs, and acidic soils. When there's acidic soils, the coral reefs can't produce like they normally do. And when animals don't have the coral reefs in the habitats they normally live and rely on, this can cause a decrease and even death in marine life. Food shortage for humans. Humans are huge consumers of fish, and when we have unhealthy fish or when fish are dying, this obviously creates a decrease in the amount of fish we can provide to humans. So that's very dangerous to us because the less food we have, the less we can provide for humans. Reproduction troubles for marine life. Once again, when these marine life are sick and they don't have the normal habitats and the normal supplements they rely on, they can't reproduce the same way they usually do. Human health. So it's not just the marine life that are affected, it's the humans too. When we consume fish that is intoxicated from these acidic waters, this can lead to disease transmission, even cancer. Many people can die from consuming unhealthy or intoxicated fish. And then the last one, clams, mussels, phytoplankton. Those are just a few examples. Urchin, sea stars, there's so many. But when they're at a shortage of carbonate ions, this affects the way their shells and skeletons reproduce. That's just a quick picture of how the shells decrease over time when they're not forming the way they properly do due to acidic waters. So just more into the shelled organisms, so how exactly they're affected. Shelled organisms rely on calcium carbonate to strengthen the shell. And when the ocean acidity increases, we have less calcium carbonate to provide to these animals. This makes it harder for them to build their shells and live the way they normally do. A fact, mussels and oysters are expected to grow less shell by 25% and 10% respectively by the end of the century. That's a huge impact on marine life. When these mussels and oysters don't have the shell they properly are used to, they cannot provide the way they usually do. They are not healthy. They cannot survive, so they end up dying. Once again, weak shells equal low chance of survival. When they're so focused on reconstructing their shell, they're less focused on providing for themselves, finding food to eat, reproducing. So they end up dying, and this has a huge effect on the food web. So the picture below, it kind of explains, each picture shows a rough estimate of a shell in acidic water for 45 days. You can see by day 45, the shell is almost completely gone. It doesn't have the elements it's used to, so it cannot survive, which ends up with a death. So how can we prevent all of this? It's really important. It starts with us. The less fossil fuels we burn, if we provide more uses of renewable energy, it's super important that we find ways to renew this energy and not let it go to waste. An example of this would be geothermal power. It's fairly new, but it's very environmentally friendly. It's a use of energy that allows companies to burn less fossil fuels. So basically, companies are producing the same amounts of products that they usually do, but there's zero carbon involved when producing geothermal power. So the amount of CO2 emission in the atmosphere significantly reduces, which is a huge, great thing that can lead to a reduce in the acidification of the ocean. It's really important that we fund the scientists to allow for more research. When the scientists are given the money and the studies they need to use to enhance their information on this topic, they can find a better way to treat the animals, find a better way that we can decrease the use of our fossil fuels and find just in general a better way to protect our ocean. And of course, it's super important. It all starts with knowledge, education. The people must know the effects pollution has on the ocean. It's so important that we keep our oceans healthy. Um, we reduce the amount of pollution in the air. We clean up the beaches when we see garbage on the shoreline. It's just super important that we as humans, although you may not think that you have an effect on the ocean, you have a huge effect on the ocean. All of the little things quickly add up. And if we have an acidic ocean, we are not going to live the way we normally can. Animals will die, the ocean will become an unsafe place, and it will have a huge effect on global warming and the life we normally live. So once again, it's super important. Although you may not think you have a big impact, each individual has a huge impact on the way the ocean provides for our marine life and us. And these are just a few of the references. And that's it. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and have a good night.